Hello, my dear students. Welcome you to the sixth session of one act play The Boor. In the previous five sessions, we have discussed the comprehension level. So, now in the sixth session, we will have a look at characters. Okay, because in the examination, there will be a questions on short notes. If for that short notes, maybe there are questions about the characters. They will give you the names of the characters, then you have to answer for 5 marks. Yes, before going to that, we will have a recap. So in the previous session number 5, so what we have learned. So we learned that after the arguments between Mr. Smirnov and Mrs. Popov, when Mrs. Popov was ready to shoot him, Smirnov proposed Mrs. Popov, and ultimately she accepts his proposal. And Mrs. Popov, by accepting his proposal, on the other way, she betrayed her husband. Okay, because for 7 months, so she was mourning, but when she got Mr. Smirnov his proposal, she accepts. Okay, it is as though it is a tit for tat. Her husband betrayed when he was alive, and now after his death, now after 7 months, when she accepts their proposal, which shows she betrayed her husband. Okay, this is a recap of the session number 5. Then we will move on to the section 6, characters and characteristics. What is learning objectives? In this session, students will understand each character individually. So for the character sketches, so the each character sits at the center, and then we have to connect analytically with each character. Okay, how they helped to the plot of the play. Objectives, session outcomes. Students will understand the contribution of each character to the plot. Definitely. Contents. So we have the major characters here. First one, Helen Popov. Excuse me. Yeah. So we have the major characters, Helen Popov, and another very important character, Grigory Stepanovich Smirnov, and servant, the minor character, Luka, and Nikolai, Mrs. Popov's husband, who never comes on the stage, and other characters. And ultimately we have 10 MCQs. Okay, multiple choice questions. First one, Helena Ivanovna Popov. So that is her full name. So we write or we read her name shortly, Popov. Who is Popov? She is a widow. Yes, her husband was dead, and who is grieving her for her husband's death. Okay, for long before, 7 months before, her husband died, and she was grieving, mourning for the death of her husband even after 7 months. That's a tragedy of the play. So outlook. So she's a very pretty girl, a very beautiful woman she is. At one time we think that such a very beautiful girl, why she is wasting her time. Okay, because she could get any man, any boy, she could get married, right? And she is a faithful woman. Okay, because when compared to her husband, she is very honest woman. So she was very strict with it. So she believes in the relationship between husband and wife. Though after the death of her husband, she was addicted to, or what we can say, she is still mourning for his death. Such a obedient woman she is, obedient wife. She stayed faithful to her husband even after his death. Found out his love letters in the desk. Okay, this is a proof which has shown that her husband was not faithful. So just look at the opposite words there, faithful and unfaithful. Her husband was unfaithful because the love letters, when she read them, it she understood that he had an affair with many other women. So at that point, she got angry because I love my husband very much and he deceived me. So this tortures her, and she is a moody. She is a moody and gets angry fast. Has a strong personality. Okay, because when we for the long 5 7 months she was mourning, but suddenly when she met Smirnov, so Smirnov, when he speaks to her in a very vulgar language, suddenly he gets angry and she is ready for the duel, and she brought gun pistols to shoot. Okay, so here she challenges Smirnov in a duel. So doesn't want to see men or marry again, because she has decided, if I go out, if I speaks with the neighbors, if I met somebody, then she may change. That's why she doesn't want to change her opinion. That's why. Okay, and at the end of the play, Smirnov proposes and she accepts. Okay, she accepts his proposal. So here, what is the character of Mrs. Popov? So just look at her. She is a very beautiful woman and she wasted her life for that unfaithful husband. Okay, he's a disloyal husband. But when she got Smirnov, when he proposes her, she accepts it. So this is the condition of her life at the end of the play. So overall you have to explain these points. Yes, this is the characters of Helena Ivanovna Popov, because these are the Russian names. It's difficult for us to pronounce. So shortly we call her Popov. Next one, we have Mr. Smirnov, the landlord. His complete name, full name. So just keep in your mind what is the spelling, or you can call him as Mr. Smirnov. Yes, who is he and what is he? He is actually he was a retired lieutenant and a country gentleman, a landlord. He criticizes himself that he should not have gone like this with his dirty boots, and he is unwashed and uncombed because he traveled for a long time. He was meeting the people whom he has lent a loan. He was asking for his money, but nobody gave him. At last he came to Mrs. Popov's estate. Here also he got disappointed, but when he enters the house, his looks, they're not good because he was wearing dirty boots, uncombed, unwashed clothes, which shows that he was very rude, rough, untidy. That's why Popov, she asked him, is it a behavior, is it what you came here? So no, this is not a good gesture. He is an emotional and expressive man. Emotional. Okay, that's why he was deceived many, and he was he fell in love with many other women, girls, and he's an expressive man. Expressive man means here, whatever he feels, he responds suddenly, whether it is a love, whether it is an anger, or anything at all, and he gets angry fast, very quickly. He gets angry. He is a strong man, could break a chair with his hands, because at one time, so he was holding the chair, and then he just, in anger, he touched the chair, but it fell. Yeah. So he's an emotional, expressive, and gets angry fast. We have seen he has broke the chair with his hands, so which shows that a manpower, physically a very strong man. By this scene, Popov gets disturbed. Then she calls him as the bear, the boar. Mrs. Popov considers him a boor, vulgar man because of his behavior. He broke one chair. So Mr. Smirnov, he thinks that women are unfaithful and hypocritical generally, because he had a very bad experience with a woman. That's why he thought that Mrs. Popov also same. But ultimately, when he conversed with her, had an argument with her, and he observed her innocence and her beauty, he falls for Mrs. Popov. He falls in love with her. It is what we can say, love at first sight, and it is his weakness. Okay, we also have seen he's an emotional, right? So because she is very beautiful, he fell before her beauty, her innocence. Okay, and how much she loved her husband, that's what he liked very much. And he states that he has never seen a woman like her in his whole life, because she was mourning for her husband after the death of him after 7 months, because he has never seen a woman who is mourning for her husband's death after 7 months also. Because many of women, they may forget in a week, in a month, okay, such a long time, but 7 months, it's too much. That's why he liked her. Then he proposes her. When he teach her how to shoot a pistol, okay, because of his physical ability, he can beat her. He could beat her, but he never done it, because when he touches her hands, he was moved by the softness of her hands, and he was moved by her innocence, because she asked him, okay, will you teach me how to use this revolver or a pistol? So this is where the funny things happen. Audience could be amused because of this scene, okay, but ultimately he kisses her, he proposed her, and she accepts him. So that is the ending of the story. Okay, one act play ends there. So overall, we may think that he's a villain in the beginning, but after all, he became a hero because he gave a life to the woman, and also his weakness for a woman, which again proved. Okay, yes. So this is the character of Smirnov. Go to next one. Luca, the servant in the house of Mrs. Popov. Luca, who also has seen her husband Nikolai, he has seen his character, his behavior. So this Luca, he is the first man who appears on the stage when the play begins. He is an obedient servant of Mrs. Popov. That's why he advises her to live a normal life. Don't continue the mourning, and stop wearing black dresses. Go outside, meet neighbors, meet others, have a wonderful life because you are too young. Enjoy your life. And he gives a comparison of the cat, because the cat knows how to perch, okay, how to catch a bird, how to eat, okay, and how to feed its stomach, and how to be happy, because these creatures know how to be happy. Then what about human beings? Why you cry for your dead husband? Enjoy your life. That's what he said. He is a kind and gentle. Yes, because he was afraid of Mr. Smirnov's behavior. Okay, at the climax of the story, so when Mrs. Popov, she brought a revolver and there was arguments were going on. He was afraid of this thing and then something will happen, he thought. Then he went outside to bring other servants with the weapons. Okay, then what are the weapons? The household things are the tools used in the garden. Okay, he thought so they will do something with this Mr. Smirnov. Okay, he suggests the best for Mrs. Popov. Okay, you don't live like this, have a happy life. Okay, he was giving suggestions to her. So, how to decorate her life with happiness. He wants her to meet other men and get out of grieving. How long she will grieve for the death of her husband, and who is disobedient, who is not a loyal husband. He is afraid when Mrs. Popova and Smirnov decide to have a duel. That's why he brought other servants. Right. So the other characters we have the gardener, okay, and other minor characters there. So this is a one-act play. So, but which has a serious note in the play, which shows the landlords, okay, how they behave, and what is their mentality, what is their thoughts were there, their ideas were there. Even Smirnov is a landlord and Popov is a landlord. So and they have another okay, there's another character, animal, Toby. So they give importance to Toby, the horse, Nikolai, because when Mrs. Popov, she remembered the name Toby, she orders Luca, go and feed some more oats to Toby, because my husband Nikolai, he loves that horse very much. That's why she want to give extra food for Toby. So these are the things which help to build up the plot in the play. Okay, so here I conclude, because there are only three characters which appear on the stage, and another character is Nikolai, her husband. So what about Nikolai? We have seen, right, who was dead 7 months before, who is unfaithful, had an affair with other women, who was beating his wife before many other women. Okay, and he has a communication, so writing letters, habit of writing letters to other women, and those letters which was found by Mrs. Popov. Okay, so such a person he was, a jovial kind of a person, but who deceived his wife. So these are the only characters we have in the play. Okay, let me conclude this. So now I have 10 questions MCQs here, just to have a recap. Okay, yeah, first question: who taught Mrs. Popov to shoot a pistol? Okay, you know the answer: A. Luca, B. Nikolai, C. Smirnov, D. the gardener. Answer is, yeah, definitely Mr. Smirnov. Second question: whose love letters are found in the desk? Mrs. Popov, Mr. Smirnov, Mr. Nikolai, Luca. Whose love letters are found in the desk, the cupboard? Yes, you know the answer? Mr. Nikolai. Third question: who is symbolically named Bear in the play, the Boor? Okay, A. the coachman, the gardener, and the Nikolai, Mr. Smirnov. So answer is Smirnov, because of his behavior, how he has broken the chair. Okay, such a rude man. Next question: who thinks women, comma, one of the weaker sex physically? Who thought that women one of the weaker sex, not man? Men are strong. Answers are A. coachman, B. gardener, C. Smirnov, D. Anton Chekhov. Who thinks? Yes, Mr. Smirnov. I also have included the writer, the playwright, Anton Chekhov. Fifth question: who pretend to be someone else. Okay, who pretend to be someone else. The characters here, because genuinely something, outwardly something. Okay, inner and outer both are not same. Who is or who are they? Both Mr. Nikolai and Mrs. Popov, both Mr. Smirnov and Mrs. Popov. C. Both Mr. Smirnov and Mr. Nikolai. D. Both Luca and Gardner. So I have given two couples here answers who are acting, who are pretending to be someone else, because which means that originally they are something, internally something. Okay, who? Answer is both Mr. Smirnov and Mrs. Popov. So how I you defend this one? Because initially Mr. Popov, he says that I hate women, I don't believe in women, because he has seen many other women in life. Okay, 12 plus 9 and now Mrs. Popov. But ultimately he falls in love with Mrs. Popov. So his beginning dialogue doesn't match with the climax of the story. Okay, that's why he pretends to be someone else, internally something. Next one, Mrs. Popov. How she pretends to be someone else? Because for 7 months she was mourning for the death of her husband, but suddenly when she met Mr. Smirnov, she falls in love with him. Is it possible? She said that in the beginning, my husband who buried in the grave, I buried myself in the before within the four walls of the house. Is it so? No. She accepts the proposal of Mr. Smirnov. That's why I made this question. Sixth question. How did Mrs. Popov want to show herself as a faithful woman? How? Try to understand the question. How did Mrs. Popov wants to show herself as a faithful wife to her husband Nikolai? A. Mourning for her husband's death, staying away from outer world, accepting Mr. Smirnov's proposal. The last option is A and B. A and B means here A and B option. Mourning for her husband's death and staying away from outside. You can select any one of the correct answer, A, B, C, D. Yes, what is the answer? Yes, A and B. So D is answer. Means here A and B. Yes, you look at A. So how did Mrs. Popov want to show herself as a faithful wife? Because he was mourning for her husband's death after 7 months also. Second point, staying away from outer world. Both A and B are correct answers. That's why correct option is D. You cannot select any one of them because they both are correct answers. That's why you have to select D. Seventh question. Why did Mrs. Popov hide her genuine feelings? What is the reason behind it? A. Why she pretend? A. To show her loyalty towards her husband. B. To be identified as a good wife. C. To attract men. And D. To avoid vulgar men. Why? Because genuinely she needs company. After the death of a husband, she wants somebody to take care of her, to love her. Okay, so throughout her life. So what is the answer? Why she didn't why did Mrs. Popov hide her genuine feelings? Why? Answer is to show her loyalty towards her husband. So we don't know why she decided to do that, but when Smirnov comes here, everything changes. Yeah. Eighth question. What do you mean by duel with the context of the play? Duel means what? Because when Smirnov argued, ultimately when she became angry, she decided to have a duel with him. So what is a duel? A. Competition. B. Gunfight. C. Contest. D. Love making. What is the meaning of duel? Answer is gunfight. Right. So even Smirnov had a duel 3 times. Duel only for the women. So when he expresses his feelings about a woman, he explained these things here. He had a duel. 3 times he had a duel for the woman. Yes. Ninth question. Why does Mr. Smirnov propose Mrs. Popov? What is the reason he came to this estate? Because he wanted to get his money back, 1200 rubles. But ultimately what he did? He proposed her. What is the reason? Yeah. Look at the options here. A. To acquire Mrs. Popov's estate. Okay, financially. Is it so? Because she's a landlord, had a property, and he is also a landlord. B. He is attracted towards Popov. Is it so? C. He couldn't resist himself. When he looks at the beauty of this woman, when he touches her hands, when he observed her innocence, he couldn't resist himself without proposing her. D. His weakness towards women. Yes. So all options are there. So what is the right answer? It's very difficult answer. He couldn't resist himself. According to me, it is a correct answer. He couldn't resist himself. He couldn't control himself. Okay, because these multiple choice questions, no, they always get confused. So the correct reason is he couldn't resist himself. That's why, which is his weakness. He was attracted towards Popov, and it is not relevant answer. It's irrelevant. Okay, but A, B, C. So A is wrong, but B, C, D, they have some relevance with this idea. But the correct answer is he couldn't resist himself. So he proposed her. And the last question here, how did Mrs. Popov bury herself? Just I have explained these things here. How did Mrs. Popov bury herself? Within the estate, within the cage, within the cave, within 4 walls? Yes, answer is within 4 walls of the house. Yes, here I conclude. So my presentation here. Thank you very much. In next we have another 3 sessions. Let me continue with that. Thank you very much for this session.